Hi, let's continue with this 2018 K Economics Unit 2 paper. And today we're going to be looking at question 2. So let's just get ourselves going as the clock is ticking. Right, so the first question was to define the term frictional employment. Now, frictional employment, as you will know, has to do with timing. So frictional unemployment can be defined as the period between which those persons who voluntarily leave their job in search of another. So how long it takes them to find another job will be considered frictional unemployment. Now, frictional unemployment could also be defined as the period in which new entrants to the labor force, such as school leavers and university graduates, etc., how long they take to find a satisfactory job. So there you have it, frictional employment. It has to do with the time between finding jobs. All right. So next question said, state two limitations of monetary policy. Now we know we got a lot of different answers to this. Just remember that I'm just giving you sample responses and not definitive things. So in this case, I'm going to go with one limitation of monetary policy is the liquidity trap. And this is where the policy was unable to spur demand to increase expenditure, even though the money supply was increased. So this will happen obviously in a depressed economy, because if you increase the money supply in a depressed economy, but the banks don't wish to lend in money, people don't wish to borrow any money, then that monetary policy will not work. Another example would be time lags. Monetary policy does have a slow effect. So the strategy might be implemented quickly, but it takes several months for that strategy to take effect. For example, lowering the interest rate should increase demand for investments, but the problem is that the investments do take a long time to be made. All right. Right. So part C of this question asks, give us this table, and it's a table on some hypothetical country showing you various pieces of data. And the first question asks to calculate the labor force participation rate down to one decimal place in both year 1 and year 2 of this hypothetical country. So the labor force participation rate obviously is looking to see how many people of the adult population are actually capable or looking for work. All right, so therefore the labor force participation rate is the labor force divided by the adult population. So when we look at this data then, the labor force would be those persons who are employed plus those persons who are actively seeking work. All right, so those will make up the labor force. And the population then that we are making reference to would be the total population minus those persons who are not eligible, those persons who are not adults. All right, so we can take out those persons under 16. All right, so in this case, the labor force participation rate would be these two numbers here added together divided by 100,000 minus the 14,250, which gives me 63.6. And so that's year 1. And in year 2, using the exact same formula, I end up with the same percentage of 63.6. So in both years, the labor force participation rate was 63.6%. All right. Now, the next part says we'll calculate the unemployment rate, right? Calculate the unemployment rate. So unemployment rate would be obviously, you find the unemployment persons. So those persons who are seeking work but don't have a job divided by the labor force. So in this case, in year one, it's the 3,325. Those are seeking work, but they ain't got no jobs yet. All right, they're seeking work, and we're going to divide that by the labor force, which will be the two numbers they added together. All right, and that gives me 6.1%. And in year two, there's a slight increase to 6.9%, right, using the same categories of information. All right, so labor force participation rate and the unemployment rate has been calculated. So let's move to the next part of the question. Now, the next part of the question asks us to discuss how is it possible that the number of persons employed increase, yet the unemployment rate also increased rather than decreased. All right, so based on the data presented, well, I'm not going to reflect back the page, but based on the data presented, what we do know is that the general population increased by 2% because it was 100,000 in year one and 102,000 in year two. So that's an increase of 2%. The adult population, however, only grew by 1%. Now, of that 1%, only 0.4% gain jobs. Hence, there is an increase in the employment because it went up by 0.4%, but it was also an increase in the unemployment. All right, because more persons came into the labor market, but they did not find jobs. Or we could further extend that point by looking at it from the numbers situation, where there was a 1,125 persons who were eligible for work between year one and year two. Right, these are the persons who are added on. When you take out all the retirement people, the underage people, and those who withdraw from the labor market, the total number of eligible persons was 1,125. Now, of those, only 205 found jobs, right? So that is 19% or thereabouts. Can't remember the exact calculation, but roughly 19% of that 1,125 found jobs, and 44% were still seeking jobs, right? And that was about close to 500 people who were added on to the job seeking market, right? So therefore, you can see from these two numbers, if I add them together, it gives me the same rough 63% labor force participation rate. So you can see clearly that both the the employed and the unemployed rates went up, right? They didn't decrease even though there was a change in the structure, but they both went up. All right, so the last part of this question says, well, analyze how the money market responds to both a shortage of money and a surplus of money. All right, well, I feel in economics, things like these, the best thing to do is sketch a little graph so you know exactly what you're going to talk about. So let's sketch a graph and see. So we're going to look at the response to a shortage. So I have this graph where I have interest rates on my y-axis and the quantity of money available on my x-axis, right? Because we know that interest rates do influence the quantity of money. And what I'm putting here now is, let's see, money supply, which is this straight line, and money demand. Because we know that the money supply in the economy is generally fixed, right? So I'm gonna use that straight line. And money demand is influenced by three different things: transaction motive, precautionary motive, and the speculative motive. So obviously, it's the speculative motive that causes the real curve um, in this money demand, because that will obviously be influenced by interest. All right, so we have the curve set. Now what we want to do now is to find out what happens if there's a shortage. So let's see. Suppose the amount of money in supply shifted to the left, meaning that there's less money available. It's in the circle flow, we can have leakages of some sort. All right. So there's less money available. And what is the impact here? Well, you could see that this group of people here, these people here who would have been investing before are now not so keen on investing because maybe they can't afford to, or they're unwilling to invest at this situation, because what will happen here is that there's an expectation that the interest rate will rise. And if the interest rate rise, then obviously the cost of borrowing money will rise. And those persons are going to hedge against that. All right. So let's, as I say, you don't have to draw the graph. I'm just saying it will help you to understand what you're doing. Anyway, let's write the answer, because that's what we really need to do. All right. So first, I'm going to start by defining basically what I mean by money market. So the money market is that aspect of the market that trades in liquid or fast money, right? Cash, short-term demand deposits and loans, treasury bills, them sort of quick turnover items, money instruments, all right? And we're saying now a shortage of money will increase the value of money under demand pressure. In other words, there's a shortage of the money, and if people want to invest, investment opportunities are there, and people want to invest. There's going to be this pressure to get money. However, there isn't enough money. So what will happen is the market may react by agents deciding that they're going to hoard their cash because they are unwilling or unable to invest at those high rates. As the cost of the investments will rise, obviously, with the expectation of an increase in the interest rates. In other words, that the cost to borrow this money will go higher. All right. So let's look at the response to a surplus. Again, I'm put back the graph. All right. And let's shift the line now to the right. So if there's an increase in the amount of money available, what you think will happen? Notice that a few more persons who had some money might come into the market to try to invest as well. All right, because if there's an expansion in the money supply, then more than likely the interest rate will fall. All right, so let's write an answer. So a surplus of money will see an increase in demand for investments, right, in these short-term deposits and loans, etc. All right, because now more people are seeking to invest, or those who invest are looking to invest more money, as the cost of capital will decline with the lowering of the interest rate. And that obviously leads to an increased demand for the short-term money instruments. Now, of course, if neither of these are sustainable because of various pressure on the investment market, right, then obviously the interest rate will have to readjust to bring the economy back into an equilibrium, bring this money market back into equilibrium. All right, but basically, I think that is how you would approach the answer to that question. All right, so I just want to thank you, because I think that was the last question there. Right, so thank you again, and do keep practicing. And remember, these answers are just guidelines, so you can find a lot more information and write to suit. Thank you.